you're using quite a lot of AI in your business, right? You've got like Remy, the AI coach, and using other cutting edge technologies. What's your future on AI in mental health? Like, could AI chatbots replace therapists one day? Like, what are your thoughts on that, like, trillion-dollar question?
Oh, it's a scary thought.
Yeah.
It's funny you say this because someone asked me this 2 years ago about the use of AI in mental health, and I was like, absolutely not.
That was before
No.
ChatGPT.
Before ChatGPT, yeah. I'd seen examples of AI chatbots where I tested them and I'd put in, I feel suicidal, or I want to hurt myself, or I want to hurt someone else. And they'd come back saying, really great to hear you feel that way. I'm like, oh no, no, absolutely not. So yeah, I'd seen some really bad examples of products in the market at that point in time. Like I say, this was before ChatGPT and kind of the rise of LLMs that we've seen over the last 12 months or so. With that, there was a pivotal point in time where we've seen the increase in number of people wanting to access mental health services. So on the back of the pandemic, for example, there are more people now coming out saying, look, I've been struggling. And that's been a huge trigger for a lot of people around loneliness, relationships, financial anxiety, and so on, feeling loss of connections, feeling like they don't belong to communities anymore, and they've lost all those social interactions. And then we've got a younger cohort coming through, the Gen Zs, where perhaps they've missed out on university, they've not had that opportunity to go and build relationships in a mass setting and so on, that are now struggling to communicate, they're struggling to forge adult relationships and so on. And I mean, the whole array of things. There's trauma of being locked down. And there's a lot of people now that have just completely wiped that phase of their life out of their minds. And that's a coping mechanism to trauma. The brain works in ways to try and protect us. So we're seeing all of these kind of trends coming through. The stigma's decreased around mental health. So more people are accessing services, which is amazing. And, like I say, you've got the rise of the pandemic, but you've also got the stigma come down. But that's resulted in a huge influx of people now wanting to access support. But the therapist pool hasn't changed size. So, when we started Inside Out, we had number of users, number of therapists. Over the course of the pandemic, it became equal. And it's gone the other way now, to a point where we've got 1 in 6 adults on wait lists. We've got, we've got 1 in 6 adults on wait lists that are averaging from 9 months to 2 years, depending on where you are in the country, for adult services, 3 to 5 years for child and adolescent mental health services. We've got a statistic I saw the other day from the World Health Organization that there's 1 therapist per 100,000 population globally.
Whoa.
I mean, it's insane, right? When you think about it like that. And obviously, you're going into third world countries and things like that, and that's how you get to that ratio. But it's complete madness. And ultimately, by the end of 2025, we're going to be in a huge deficit of practitioners to the sum of around 10 million. So what do? It takes 3 years to train a therapist. It takes a couple of years for them to then go and get experience. So 5 years training, essentially, and experience. How are we ever going to, even if we started today and we had the funding available to do that, how are we ever going to train enough therapists in the next 5 years to cater for the demand when the demand for mental health services is going up and up and up and up? So even if we started today, in 5 years' time, we still wouldn't have enough therapists. So we now need to look at new technologies to treat mental health illness and provide different services, because human therapy is great, and I'm a firm believer that we should never, ever get rid of human therapists. And as good as AI will ever be, talking to a bot, essentially, even if it's an avatar, you're never going to have the same relationship and the same connection and empathy than you'll have with that human therapist.
Seems unlikely, right? Yeah.
It does. So the way that we're now positioning Inside Out is we have Remy, who's our AI coach. Remy is able to run triaging, so we take into account multiple different biomarkers, so physical health and mental health data sets, and we can then triage you through, based on those data sets, to different interventions. So we have Remy conversational chat, and at the moment that's text-to-text and speech-to-speech. Over time, that will become an avatar with real-time voice generation behind it. It's uncanny valley at the moment. It's not quite there yet. So at the moment, it's just text-to-text, speech-to-speech. But it will be an actual avatar you can talk to for mild symptoms. Because, of course, there are people that don't want to speak to a human. Again, we're seeing a lot of younger people coming through. The thought of picking up the phone, going to speak to someone in real life is quite scary and it's quite daunting. Neurodivergent populations, the same thing. So there will always be a community of people that want to speak to an AI therapist, and then there'll also be a community of people that don't. So we're building out this triaging process to do that. Then there'll also be, we're building at the moment, which I think is really exciting, the ability to deliver CBT courses, but using Gen AI, so you can personalise the scenarios and the exercises to that particular individual based on their scenario in a way that's not been possible to date. And then that will be delivered in the mobile app and in a self-taught way. And then we have the human therapy as well. So it's full spectrum.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're embracing new technologies like AI as opposed to being fearful and kind of running away from them, which a lot of other companies are doing. What about virtual reality? What are your thoughts on like VR immersive, mental health programs?
Yeah. So if you'd asked me this question about a year ago, I'd have been all in. We thought it was the bees and E's. We thought it was amazing, and it is amazing, right? It still is amazing. I think virtual reality, as we know, has not had the uptake that we all expected.
It's still on that journey, isn't it?
It's on a very kind of slow upward curve, and I think the Vision Pro has been released in America. It's not yet here. When that comes over here, I think maybe things will change. Maybe there'll be a bit of a buzz around it. But just the general accessibility to headsets, is and has been and will continue to be a problem at that level of scale. And the price point of the Vision Pro, I think, will definitely price a lot of people out of the market. But we are seeing it booming in education, and we are seeing it booming